Present.
Councilman Carroll, Councilwoman Hood,
Present.
Councilwoman Bell,
Present.
Councilman Perkins,
Present.
and Councilwoman Adie. And I'd recognize our interim city manager, Tammy Sadler Jones. Okay, we've gone through roll call, and I just want to make sure, take a point of personal privilege. If you notice, I don't have on my normal green, and that is because tomorrow is Vice Mayor Johnson's birthday, and in recognition of her birthday, we all decided to give her flowers of purple today. So just wanted to put that out there. All right, part 3. Public comments. Any member of the public may address questions or comments to the city council referencing only agenda items after the mayor and council have had the opportunity to discuss the agenda item. Each attendee will be allowed 3 minutes for comments. We'll move into presentations, which is number 4A, and that's a presentation by Brian Rossum highlighting the events from the 2024 Summer Youth Basketball Camp. Is he here now? Okay. And Mr. Duncan will introduce him.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, but you're getting introduced, so wait 1 second.
Let me try this again. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Today I want to introduce Brian Rossum, who is the founder and director of Rossum Sports. They last several years they have conducted the youth basketball camp that was held at the Clarkson First Baptist Church, and he wants today to share some highlights of the camp last year, and then also do a presentation about future camps that we would like to have this coming year and year moving forward.
Yes. Okay, Mr. Rossum, so you have about 5 minutes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Mayor Burks and
Good
panel.
evening.
Good evening. I apologize. I am in Arkansas right now coaching basketball, but I did want to take time out to thank the city of Clarkston and the community for the last 2 years of us doing our basketball camps there at Clarkson First Baptist Church. The first year that we did the camp there, we had 38 campers. Last year, when we did the camp, we had over 80 kids and campers there. The camp continues to get bigger and better every year. And so with our continued success, we would like to involve the Clarkson community even more. This coming year, we're going to do the camp in June 24th through the 27th. That would be a Tuesday through Friday. We're anticipating even more kids coming this year. I had several parents that come up to me after the camp last year and was asking if we could even do the camp longer. So eventually, I would like for us to be able to do the camp not only 1 week, but possibly 2 and even more in order to keep the kids active. And it allows us to teach them several life skills as well. We do more than just basketball. We have the camp schedule usually goes like this. At 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. is usually the campers getting dropped off by their parents or guardians during that time. On the opening day, of course, there's registration involved where we pass out applications to the campers, and then we pass out their T-shirts that they all get. From 9 a.m. to 9:15, we usually do opening statements, go over the rules with the campers and introductions of staff members. From 9:15 a.m. to 11 a.m. is usually basketball. That means most of the kids are on the court, playing and participating in basketball skills. From 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., we take our break. That's a 2-hour time frame, but we do a lot in that time frame. From 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., we'll have lunch break along with classroom sessions. With the classroom sessions, they can be varied. Last year, we did a conversation with a veteran The veteran being Reverend Victor Johnson, who was a former military vet. He had one class. We also did an arts and craft class that was done by Miss Josepha Renee. We also do a mental health session, a mental health class for our kids. We have a specialist by the name of Miss Tracy Hawk, who flew in from New York. She's a mental health therapist, yoga specialist, and deep breathing specialist. And as all of you know, that today, pertaining to our kids, mental health is very important. So that's something that we also take time out to stress at our camp. Within also that time frame, we also have a guest speaker, usually every day. We have had guest speakers such as Dominique Wilkins, former NBA Hall of Famer, to come to our camp, as well as several other successful people throughout society, including judges, NBA referees, and other successful business people here in the Clarkston community. From 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., we resume basketball activities on the floor, on the court. And at 3 p.m., we finish. From 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., that would be pickup time for the campers by their parents and guardian. So from Tuesday to Friday, that is the typical schedule for our campers. We keep them busy and we get them good and tired. So at 4 p.m., they're all exhausted. So with that being said, we are looking to continue to do the camp, making an annual event, and that we hope that it can be bigger and better every year. It's grown a lot the last 2 years, and we anticipating it getting bigger and better. Again, my name is Brian Rowsome, and if anyone on the committee has any questions or concerns, please point them out to me. Feel free. Also, if you want more information about me, feel free to Google me, or you can see my work on YouTube. Thank you very much, panel.
Okay. Thank you very much. Council, do you have any questions? Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thank you, Brian, for your presentation. I had the pleasure of attending both years of this event, and I can say it was very, very nice. And the mayor actually had a class during one of these sessions, but we had a different process this year with our CARES applications. Did you guys apply?
For the grant?
Yes, the funding that you used to support this this event over the last 2 years.
Yes, as far as I know, everything was applied for. I received an email from Pastor Moore last week also saying that we did not get selected for a grant as well.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Hood?
Yes, is this boys and girls basketball?
Yes, ma'am. It's boys and girls ages 7 to 18.
Okay. All right. And thank you very much for the presentation. And we'll just keep watching. What? Oh, Councilwoman Bell.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian, for that information. Do you mind sharing with us the demographic data? How many of the participants in the summer youth basketball camp are actually from Clarkston?
Yes, I don't personally have that information at the moment, but we do have it broken down by demographics. Because last year we had a lot of local kids, but we also had some foreign kids as well here. So we can get that information to you.
Okay, and I have one more question, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
My second question is, I noticed that you mentioned the trainings, but are you working on cultivating relationships with local providers? Because we have Positive Growth, which is not too far away from the church, that also can help with the mental health training. And then some of the other trainings, have you tried to find local professional support in the Clarkston community to kind of fill in these gaps so that you don't have to fly people in?
Right, yeah, we would love that. All we can do is advertise for the camp. I can't, obviously, it's difficult to go around and try to meet with everybody to try to get them on board. But we do a great job of advertising for the camp. Here it is 4 months before. So anybody that wants to help out and participate, we certainly want that. We want more sponsors as well. We did have some people to donate and help us out sponsorship wise last year. So yes, if there's anyone that can provide anything or want to volunteer and help us in any kind of way, please let us know and we can see if we can incorporate you into helping us at the camp.
Okay, any other questions? All right. Hearing none from the public? None online? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ransom. We'll take that into consideration in terms of
Thank
how
you.
we may be able to support otherwise.
Thank
Okay.
you, Mayor Burks.
We'll move- All right, you take care. And Mr. Hammond, if you don't mind, there's a button on the screen that says, okay, it's kind of cutting off Councilwoman Bell, so I can't. Thank you so much. Okay. We'll move on to 5A, which is to discuss the proposed dates for April 25th to the 26th, 2025 for the 2025 Mayor Council Staff Retreat. And that is Ms. Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. This item is back on the agenda because staff was asked to change the retreat date to April of this year from our original date of February 7th and 8th. We did a poll again for a second time, and the April 25th and 26th date, which is a Friday and a Saturday, received the most responses. And so if this is the preferred date for the retreat, if you will let us know, then staff will begin to seek out viable venue options where the retreat can be held, and also we can look into trying to secure a facilitator and plan for the retreat agenda. We're looking at all day Friday and then half day on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, is this date fine with everyone? Everyone? Okay. Okay. All right. Well, then we'll move forward with that date. Thank you very much. Any comments from the community or public? Dean, come on.
I'd like to attend it, but I do have some other engagements on that date, but where is it going to be?
She needed to get us to confirm it, and once we've confirmed it, then she'll follow back up with us for the date, and we'll put publishing.
Thank you. Dean Moore.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Okay, with that, no other comments, and we don't need to do anything else with this item. We'll move to 5B, which is to discuss the appointment of Ashton Walker to the Historic Preservation Commission. And the next set will be all Richard. Edward?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Council and Mayor. So on this one, Ashton Walker is seeking reappointment to the Historic Preservation Commission. He is the mayor's appointment, and he would be up for a 3-year appointment here. And this would be his last term on the board based on the current bylaws and code of ordinances. He was not able to be here today. He spoke to me last week at the HPC meeting and said he wouldn't be able to make it. And this was advertised for a little over 30 days, and staff did not receive any requests for appointment on this one other than Mr. Walker.
Okay.
So you want to reappoint him?
Yes, I do. Okay. Yes.
Richard, I heard you say that this would be Ashton's last term, although they have just started to do some work. Do you have any recommendations for us as if we change those bylaws?
Yes, so actually the HPC at their last meeting did review their bylaws, and they have some recommended changes that'll be coming at our next meeting, which includes maybe putting in something in the code that says a minimum of 30-day notice when their term is up, as opposed to only 2 concurrent terms. And they are also requesting that they have more members on their board, because at 3 members, none of them can meet without it being a quorum.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. We look forward to that. Does anybody have any other questions? Are you fine with this on consent? Consent? Okay. With that, the next Mr. Green.
Yep, and the next one is a reappointment of Brenda Dracol. Did I say that right? To the Planning and Zoning Board. This would be a 4-year appointment for him, and he is here to speak on his behalf if you would like to hear.
Take it away.
Good evening, Mayor and the Council. My name is Birendra Dakal. I live at 3766 Cranford Drive. I've been serving the Planning and Zoning Board for the last 10 years. It's an incredible experience for me to be on the board. We have made several recommendations to the Council, which were considered later on. I'm a retired person, but working as a part-time worker in the Mosaic Health Center currently. If the council considers, I would like to go for another term. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any question, I'll be willing to answer.
I'm going to ask this of everybody, but what certifications have you gotten through, related to planning and zoning? There are several certifications that are offered, classes that are trainings that are offered for P&Z board members.
Yes, there are classes offered, but I haven't been able to attend any of them because of my job. Probably this year I'll be going for one of the courses in April or May.
Okay, so you
Any other questions? Any public comments? Hearing none. Is this consent? Okay, consent. All right. All right. Now we have Miss Lisa Williams.
Yes, ma'am. This is a reappointment for 4 years of Lisa Williams to the Planning and Zoning Board. And I forgot to mention at the last one, this was also advertised for a little over 30 days. And we received no applications for P&Z.
Good evening. How are you guys doing? For the past 4 years, it's been my pleasure to serve my community and the city on the Planning and Zoning Board. During that time, I have done some trainings. One ARC Community Planning Academy, I think it's called. So I did that one, which was great. That was a series of 3 all-day trainings that they do around the city, and I think that we have another P&Z board member that's going to that soon. And so that was really, really great. I would recommend that to anyone. I've also done I think 2 different Carl Vinson institutes. What's it called? Carl Vinson Institute that are offered as one-day trainings at UGA Gwinnett. And I know I'm forgetting one. I know that Mr. Edwards' team did present a training to us also this year. So I was actually trying to pull up my letter to you guys to see if I've missed anything, but those have all been great. Happy to continue those any continuing education courses. I think there's a 102 Carl Vinson coming up that I will try to register for. That's actually very soon. But I will keep my eye out for those. And I'm here to answer any questions you have.
All right. No.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Any public? Okay. No public. Is this consent? Okay, consent. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we have Felicia Weinhardt.
Yes, Madam Mayor. So this is a 4-year reappointment of Felicia Weinert to the Planning and Zoning Board. She was a little under the weather today, so she was unable to make it. But I will turn it back over to you.
Okay. And she's been on there for 8 years? Or?
Yes, I do believe it has been 2 consecutive terms. she's
Right.
been on.
Okay. All right. From the public?
Terms Richards. Okay. Mr. Edwards, are you aware of what training Ms. Weinhardt has completed? She completed the light baseline.
I know a lot of them did take the Planning Academy through ARC a couple years ago, but I don't have any receipts or anything saved of that, so I can't speak on it.
Is that a priority for P&Z? I know Mr. McFarland is the chair, but just to make sure everybody's up to date on certification.
Yes, that is usually one of the ones that's recommended throughout the region for that. I think this year it's already full and closed, but I'm constantly looking for other trainings.
Okay.
Thank you. With that, is this going to be consent as well? Okay. Consent, consent. Okay, consent. All right, thank you. And we have item 5F, which is to discuss an ordinance to amend the text of the zoning ordinance to designate drive-in and drive-through restaurants as conditional uses in the NC2 zoning district.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Yeah, so on this one, it's a proposed text amendment to section 3 of 403 to allow conditional use permit submittals for eating and drinking establishments, including drive-through and drive-in establishments in the NC2 zoning district. Currently, there is approximately 29 properties designated NC2 within the city, and all of them would become eligible for this. However, it would have to go through 3 public hearings, and the city council would get the final vote. So it's not like we're allowing drive-throughs anywhere within the city. And on this one, staff is recommending approval, and planning commission also recommended approval of this one as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No question? All right. Any comments from the public? Public, come up.
Madam Mayor, I'm Dean Moore, Rayford Trail. I'm really kind of embarrassed as to how long this takes us in the city for something like this, because this building already has the drive-through window there. I believe the owner purchased it with that in mind, that it was there and it was probably a legal thing. Nobody ever checks out with the city to make sure that these things are allowed in that zone because it's already there. And we've had problems in the past with people renting places and the owner doesn't tell the lease or leasee that they are not allowed to do certain businesses or do any renovation without permits, things like that. And so we've had some hazardous situations that have developed in the past where people have come in and done that. I hope that these other 29 businesses don't suddenly start knocking out their walls to put in a window to have a drive-through and go through the process. And I'm not encouraging everybody to come out and get drive-throughs, but he's already got a drive-through window and he's struggling. I'm embarrassed that this is taking so long because he would probably be doing a lot better if he'd had that drive-through when he first bought the building. He had that permit. So thank you for letting me speak on that subject.
Okay, thank you. Any other public? All right, hearing none. With this one, would you like to move forward? How would you like to move forward with this one? Consent, right. It has, I'm just saying you're okay with it.
Is it already, my understanding, the planning and zoning was public hearing for it, right? Or is that?
Yes,
Yes.
We have to.
I agree.
And so, did P and Z have their public hearing now?
Their public hearing was held last week, I believe.
Okay, okay, all right, so public hearing, regular agenda item. All right, perfect. All right, then we'll move, thank you, Mr. Edwards, and then we'll move to 6A, which is to discuss a resolution pledging to practice and promote civility in the city of Clarkston. And Ms. Sadler Jones?
Thank you, Mayor. The City of Civility designation for the City of Clarkston is up for renewal and will expire in the coming months. The Georgia Municipal Association notified the city and would like to continue recognizing the city's commitment to fostering civility within our community. The renewal process is identical to the original certification process, which is the adoption of the resolution by the City Council confirming its commitment to civility and then submission of the resolution to GMA. Staff recommends approval.
And are there any questions about this item? Okay. Are we good with this one? Okay. Any questions from the public? All right, this can go on consent. No? Oh, he's trying to be simple now, okay? All right, so this will go on consent. Thank you all. And I also want to let you know, to our P and Z who are here, that you can go unless you just want to stay for the meeting. So I just want to make sure you know you're free to leave because you're on consent. All right, we'll move on to B, which is to discuss resolution authorizing a contract to the most responsive and responsible bidder, Aquatic Management, Inc. for the Milam Park Pool Management for the 2025 swimsuit season in the amount of 78,740 to be funded out of the general fund, and that's Mr. Duncan.
Yes, good evening again, Mayor, Council. This agreement is with Aquatic Management and the city of Clarkston. And in the agreement, Aquatic Management will provide aquatic cleaning, chemical supplies, aquatic facility opening and closing agreement, aquatic supervisor agreement, and lifeguard. The pool season will run from May 24th to September 1st. So it's a little confusing this year because the pool will be open from May 24th to the 26th, Memorial Day weekend. But then we'll be closed on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday because school doesn't get out until after Memorial Day, which is May 29th. And then we'll have our grand pool opening on May 30th. And that's when the pool will officially be open for the summer. So there's a little gap in between because of the way they have pool closing. This contract will officially start on April 1st, and the current contract we have with Sears will end on March 31st. Normally, we like the contract to go from January 1st to December 31st, but because how the contract was written last year with Sears, this contract with Aquatic Management will not start until April 1st. And there'll be 5 monthly payments starting April through August for that will total the 78,740.
And how are they gonna, as far as the lifeguard, is kind of things that you have, as far as having enough lifeguards?
And that's one of the changes we made in the contract this year, because I know with Sears only provided 3 lifeguards. So this year we're asking for 4 to 5 lifeguards, and just depending on the peak time, if we'll have 5, but regularly we're gonna have 4, and then it's just optional.
And go ahead.
Can you tell me the difference in cost with this company compared to what we've been paying over the last few years?
It's about the same.
It's about the same.
Yeah.
Okay. But we're getting more out of them.
Yeah, we get more
Okay.
in this contract this year.
Okay. Thank you.
And then the only other thing is the preference, as far as like the adult preference.
So in this contract, I made sure we had the pool company has a supervisor at the pool at all times during the hours that we're open. So in the past, we just had the lifeguard, but they're required to have a supervisor there operating out.
Okay. And that is an adult.
That's a adult.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Yes, Councilwoman Hood.
Just 2 things. Am I correct that in addition to the company supervisor, the city will also have an employee on the site?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. And then I noticed in the contract there was some reference to if the city allowed private parties, you know, if for the pool to be leased and that sort of thing. Do we do that?
Yeah. So we have rentals, and then we ask for rentals at least 2 weeks ahead of time, so then we can notify the pool company
it, Councilwoman Bell.
Well, something happened because y'all went blank and then y'all froze, but I guess it's back now. The question I had was centered around I know previously when we worked with the pool management company, they came back when we asked for additional like staffers to be present. So is that already written in the contract around the lifeguards and the supervision to make sure it's adequate?
Yeah. And when you say come back, what do you mean?
We had to make addendums to the contract to add additional staff because you just mentioned that in the past with Sears, we only had 2 lifeguards and you're asking for 4. Is that written?
Yeah, it's written in there that if we ask for a fifth, there might be a little adjustment to it, but we have 4 that we're hoping that will take care of the issues that we had last year. But with 3, we only can let 90 people in the pool. But with 4 and 5, we can let more people in the pool, and that will eliminate the lines that we had. So it is written in the contract.
And I have one sub question, if it's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
The other question is around recruitment. In the past, that was the challenge. The challenge was not that it wasn't in the contract and it wasn't enough, is that the provider that we had the contract with said that they couldn't recruit enough individuals to come in and help us with making sure we had lifeguards and supervision. So are we helping them with that recruitment aspect as well as them? And what does that timeline look like for them to be fully staffed?
Well, once we get the contract approved, we're going to start that effort April 1st. And then we're also going to help with the recruitment. One thing that I asked this year is that the pool staff be a reflection of our community. And so we didn't have that last year. So that's something that we're going to work with them this year. And we're going to also help them as far as trying to get people from this community to be part of the staff this year. So that's something that we talked about and we emphasized that that's what we want for this year.
Thank you.
And Councilwoman Bell, I don't know if you heard him when he said that there'll be a supervisor too.
Yeah, I heard him. But that was the issue. Remember, Mayor, that it wasn't written in the contract, is that the provider said they couldn't find anybody because everybody was grappling in a limited pool of people. So I want to make sure that we have a strategy centered around the recruitment piece.
Oh, yeah, we definitely do. We have a strategy. So we're going to work with the pool company to make sure that they are fully staffed and they stay fully staffed. So we're going to work this year.
Thank you. Any other questions? Public, any questions? Approving a variance request to allow a dumpster enclosure in the front yard of property located at 3643 Market Street, parcel ID number 18096050004 at the Clarkston Plaza. Ms. Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, so the applicant is requesting variances from section 607 for off-street parking requirements and section 412B3 accessory structures and uses in the front yard. So on this one, the Clarkston Plaza Shopping Center currently has their their dumpster and dumpster enclosure behind the building on Bond Street. And we've had issues with the AME church there where the dump truck is going in to get the dumpster and running over their curb cut and damaging their curb cut. So with this, the city staff did recommend that they move it. And I did provide an updated site plan for you all before the meeting on your dais. So the applicant is proposing to put it there on the center aisle on the western side of the property. The original proposal had it to where the dump truck was coming out on Bond Street, which could potentially damage the curb on Bond Street. And it also opened up to Refuge Coffee's sitting area. So we necessarily did not want a dumpster facing their sitting area. It's one of the only patios we have in downtown right now. So with that, staff is recommending approval of this based on the updated site plan with the following conditions, and these will be updated for our next meeting to reflect the new site plan. One, the development shall be substantially in compliance with the site plan dated November 8th, 2024. Two, the architectural design shall be substantially in compliance with the elevation renderings dated September 23rd, 2024. Three, the property owner shall be responsible for maintaining the structure in a state of good repair. Four, the property owner shall be responsible for any cost associated with destruction of curbs, curb cuts, or other infrastructure related to the right-of-way adjacent to the dumpster and enclosure along Bond Street, which that one would be struck with the updated site plan. And on this one, Planning Commission did recommend approval with the updated site plan. Thank you.
All right, any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Vice Mayor
My
Johnson.
question is for the city engineer. This location, Larry, that they're wanting to put this dumpster, what are your, is this where you initially told them in November to put it?
So how much time do you have for me to go through the history of this?
I've,
Long
I've
time.
actually dealt with it the entire time.
Started doing three skates project. So location is about the only place you can put it. There are no other options unless you put it in the middle of the parking lot or at the end of the parking lot. There's very few options. And they have to have a dumpster, you know, and the whole history is they had the dumpsters on city right away for 50 years. And we tried to relocate them 8 years ago and couldn't find a place. So we put them on Vaughn Street. We thought that was okay. And it worked okay until the dumpster designs and the type of trucks changed with DeKalb County. So then we had to move them to another location. The other location we selected didn't work on the North Indian Creek side. So this is it.
So this is the location you
Yes.
told them about in November.
They know about it. I mean, it's not like Richard and I have communicated with the contractor and to Mrs. Tran. And so this is it. There is no other location.
Aesthetically, how is that gonna look off the market?
You cover it all up. It's all enclosed. So who wants a dumpster in the parking lot facing Market Street? None of us do, right? None of us do. But where do you put it? There's no place to put it. You can't put it on the North Indian Creek side, the face the building, face North Indian Creek, because the DeKalb County and Waste Management will not come in and back into the alleyway or back onto North Indian Creek. So that option's out. The other option, entering into the parking lot right there on North Indian Creek side, where there was a pad built by the contractor. Problem with that is it's located on top of a sewer line. Where do you put it?
So with the location I'm looking at on this diagram, this is gonna be conducive to a front loader picking up this dumpster head on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but
So,
the
yeah.
back of it is not facing Vaughn?
Oh no.
If the back of it is, okay, it's gonna open up to market, so they'll be able to drive directly into this dumpster.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Okay.
And there's enough room to do it with this.
So if,
Again, not ideal, but
right, so if anything changes as far as the type of truck, it's like most of them on front lawn, is that going to be conducive? Are we gonna have?
Well, right now, the
Once you
truck
do
they're
that-
using is the worst.
I know, but I'm just trying, this is what got us to this problem.
so if the design changes again 5 years from now, there'll be parking spaces that would have to be eliminated. There's no other way of doing it.
Any questions from the council? Councilwoman Hood?
I just want to clarify that this is the current plan that's going to be part of the conditions. I just want to make sure I'm getting
Yes,
this
ma'am.
right.
After staff had spoken with the contractor and planning commission voted for this, the contractor needed some time to get the plans together, so we weren't able to get them until yesterday, unfortunately. So it wasn't in your packet, but this is the site plan that the contractor and owner have agreed to.
Okay, great. I just wanted.
And I've also spoken to Jacob on this. This may be an opportunity for some of our placemaking efforts to maybe put a mural there to beautify it somewhat, if the owner is amenable to that. But that would have to come later with more discussions.
So what kind of product are we talking about for that? Is that going to be something that's brick or wood or what?
It's gonna be brick, yes, ma'am.
Okay, it's going to be a brick. Okay. And they're going,
There's structural diagrams.
Yeah, the change of the design has not changed from what was in your packet.
okay. And then they're going to clear the alleyway on Vaughn
Yes, all those dumpsters will be removed from there.
and the concrete.
Um, I'm sure we can work with the applicant to get the demo
Okay.
permit to get that removed.
Okay.
I have a question about the applicant being responsible for these changes. This was a city change because we had to change it because of, but we're making them put this bill for something we did.
So the original dumpsters were at the corner of North Indian Creek and Market since who knows when, 70s, probably, or 80s. Those dumpsters are all located on city right of way. The entire bioswale that you see there and all the street, all city right of way. Nobody knew it until we started the streetscapes project. Then our survey said, oh, city owned property. That's when we went to Mrs. Train and said, you gotta move them. And that's how this all started. So did we force them to? Well, they were using city land for forever.
Right, but again, they're now, 50 years later, they're having to put this bill, and they tried to do your improvements, but got shut down because they didn't know that they had to go through all of these permitting processes. Is that not what happened?
No. They knew. No. So when they were located on Vaughn Street, the dumpster design changed. Those trucks began to back into the pasture driveway, which we fixed. So it's their responsibility to find another location for those dumpsters.
Oh, okay.
And
I
that's
got
why
you.
it's in the parking lot.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, we changed, that's right, we paid the church improvements too.
I've got another question. I think kind of jumping off of Vice Mayor Johnson's question is that new location. Why was this not the original plan? I think when it moved to begin with, because the new location actually has bollards like in the street itself.
So this goes back to two previous city managers where the decision was not to put the dumpsters in the parking lot. We try to mask the dumpsters, try to find another place we wouldn't see them from the public. So we put the bollards on Vaughn Street so no car would hit the dumpsters because they're right there on the edge of pavement. So that's why you see the dumpster. That's why you see the bollards on Vaughn Street. So do we need to put bollards out here? Are there bollards in the offices? I didn't think so. So I don't think if you're gonna hit something, you're gonna hit the brick. And
So I want to clarify my question. I think this is sort of what Vice Mayor Johnson, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of getting at. It seems like we moved those bollards are like in the middle of the road, which my understanding is absolutely.
they'll be moved.
Yeah. Well, so that I guess the question is, if we asked them to move to a location that was in the middle of we put a dumpster in the middle of the street. Now we're asking them to move it again. Is the city not responsible a little bit for a part of that? And why wasn't that this sort of a part of the original plan? Because sounds like we either administratively or somehow else approved to put something in the middle of the street, which is against, all sorts of things.
Can't tell you that. All I know is I found a spot from previous city manager 2 years ago, two prior city managers to find a spot that's not in the parking lot. And I did exactly that.
Yes, Councilwoman Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. Larry, you might as well go back up there to the stand because I got a similar question. Because we've been going through this for quite some time now about this dumpster. And so I know, and Richard, maybe you can answer this as well, But in the packet, it mentions that the property owner will be responsible for any of the costs associated with the destruction of the curves and curb cuts and other infrastructure related to the right-of-way adjustment. And I just want to make sure that that's being clear to them and that they are aware, because as you know, Larry, when we talked about this before, they didn't think they had any responsibility, and or is there a plan to kind of mitigate some of the costs because of the, shifts and changes that they've asked you to go in and make recommendations for Larry, but it has an unintended consequence to the owner. And so I just want to make sure that we're able to start from a clean slate and they understand what they're responsible for. But if there's any way that we can kind of mitigate some of this so that, moving forward, we won't have these issues.
Sure how to respond to that. So the location that was on Vaughn Street was something that the city and the owner agreed to. Both. So I guess the question is, should the city be partially responsible to do some of the demo work on what's out there now after the dumpsters are removed, meaning the concrete slab and the bollards? I think that's most probably just a city council decision for that. Should we? I don't know. There's a lot of things that have been placed on city right of way over the last 50 years, 60 years, 70, 80 years, such as all the parking on Market Street, where all that maintenance on cars were done in city right of way since the 1950s, right? And we took all those away because they were working on city right of way. Did we reimburse the owners? No. And so we have dumpsters on city right of way since the 70s. Did we ask for reimbursement for their use of the city land? No. So I think the owners have had a many decades of use of city right of way. So should the city go in and pay for the cost of demolition and the bollards? I would, personally speaking, I would say no. That's just my opinion.
Can we get something to see what that looked like, that cost?
Yeah. So the bollard removal and the slab removal, I would say most probably it's about $1,500 to $2,000 for the demo. Jackhammering it, removing the bollards, cutting them off of the base, between $1,500 to $2,000.
All right. Any other questions about this? Anything from the public?
Sorry.
Oh,
One more. Mr. Quinn, got a real quick question for you.
Sure.
regarding this. If we, would this in any way create a precedent if we were to make a decision on, assisting these particular bollards for like future cases?
If you're asking if the city council paid for removing these bollards?
Yes.
No, I mean, not in my opinion. I think that if they're in the city right of way, just like all of our rights of way, the council can decide how you want to use it. So I wouldn't consider it a gratuity to the property owner, which would be prohibited. It's just an adjustment to how the city wants to use the city property.
What I meant, because there's a little bit of it sounds like we were the ones that asked them to put it in the right of way. Would us resolving this and this, I'm kind of hearing two different.
We
possible
asked
interpretations
them.
of what happened.
Sorry, I'm not super familiar with the details of the background here, but
Need help out with this? But it's my understanding that with this picture, that two city managers prior did not want the dumpster facing the Indian Creek side or market, and took it upon himself, because I don't think there are any variances or any documentation related to it, to put it there.
okay, so the city, through the city manager only, allowed this private business to use city right of way for its private dumpster. And now we are no longer wanting to allow that.
Right.
Okay, so can you repeat the question, Mr. Perkins?
So I'm just wondering if we were to, because of that situation, if we were to go in and say there are some things that were done not according to the process, and we were to say pay $1,500 or $2,000 to remove these bollards, would that create any kind of legal precedent where if we were to run into a similar situation where process would follow in the future, there would be an expectation or an obligation to cover any costs associated with that in the future? Does that make sense?
I think it does. But are the bollards located on the private property or on public property?
They are in the road itself. They're about
Oh.
2 feet into the road from the curb.
Actually, it's on the edge of the pavement.
Yeah, it's on the
And by removing them, that would allow the private property owner to use this new location for the dumpster, which the city now prefers. I
know
don't,
if I don't know if us removing them would be one way or another. It would just, I guess the question is who's footing the bill for the removal?
right. Well, if it's in the city's right of way and it was installed by the city, then it would be our responsibility to do that unless, for whatever reason, someone else agreed to do it. I guess would be the bottom line. I don't, I mean, to kind of get back to your question, I don't see any decision that's made that's so specific as this as creating any sort of precedent for any other location, because this is incredibly unique to this property or this location.
Let me emphasize one other examples. There's a couple examples, Councilman, of just like this. Streetscapes project on Market Street. The owners of the automobile shop on Market Street had their infrastructure, their apron, concrete apron going in their shops, their islands, they had signs, all well within the city right of way for years. We removed every bit of that and we never reimbursed that owner.
But I guess the distinction I'm seeing is in this case, someone from the city told them to put it there. And I think that's the difference that I'm trying to get at.
So they installed the bollards at their expense.
No, city did.
No.
So we installed it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I guess both Vice Mayor and Councilperson, as it relates to item number 2, that's
I'm sorry, Mayor, I didn't.
So I was saying, as we're talking about it, it's more to address item number 4, which is the property owner shall be responsible for any cost. So from a council perspective, given this situation,
We would like that removed.
with that, is that your pleasure to have
That's
this?
my pleasure to have item 4 removed.
And on this, I think staff's intent was any future damage to any future right of ways. However, if you would like, we could put a condition in for a not to exceed amount to reimburse the applicant with the city attorney's approval of something like that.
We're only talking about the bollard level.
Right.
We just specified that part of it.
Correct.
So based on conversation, we'll adjust it to the office staff and all.
Yes, I can make a fifth amendment to that.
Okay. Okay.
And would you like a reimbursement, like a not to exceed 2,000 based on Larry's comments, or is there a number?
We want you to find out finance what it would be.
And just to be clear, Richard, number 4 doesn't say anything about future. So it's cut and dry, the demo. So
Yeah, well, so for
it
this
could
one,
easily be
my
removed.
intent with this, and maybe it reads wrong, and I do apologize, was for when the proposed location was there on Bond Street, where the dump trucks would be going in and out on Bond Street. So that was the intent. That with the updated location, I do think this definitely needs to be reworded.
So we'll allow you to rework with city attorney and Mr. Kaiser in terms of cost and everything else for this one for next week. Any questions from the public? Okay, come on, Mr. Bates. We'll let him talk first.
Good afternoon,
Good
members of the council.
afternoon.
My name is Ann Steve Bates. I'm the general contractor that was hired by the owner to construct the dumpster pad in the enclosure. I'm a little confused. Am I to understand that the city council will either remove the bollards and the concrete pad or reimburse the owner for removing the bollards from the concrete pad from the existing location where it is right now?
So, Ms. Hyde, please remember being clean and easy, and I don't know if that's a city manager or.
So if Mr. Bates can do it for $200, we'll just reimburse him. So my alternative solution would be for the city to hire a contractor and to do it ourselves.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we'll do that. Okay. All right. And Mr. Dean, okay, we'll let, and then.
Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor, I'm Dean Moore, Rayford Trail, and this isn't the first time I've heard about dumpsters being on the wrong property or being in the right of way. And I got involved in the city in 2006 and discovered that the apartments next to me had put dumpster enclosures that the city required them to rebuild, on one on my property, one on my neighbor's property, one on the church property up on Church Street. And it wasn't very helpful. The city was not very helpful in that endeavor. And I didn't discover that it was on my property because my survey.
So I'm gonna pause you.
Oh.
Because I know that's you great story, but we're talking about the one in Market.
I know.
So
I'm-
come
I'm
on back
just-
to
I'm
that.
getting to a point
Okay.
here because of past history. The city has shown a lack of knowledge of where the right of ways are.
Keep going. Stay focused. Stay focused. Keep going. Keep talking.
Of where the right of ways are and where our property ends and where private property begins. And when we got our first city manager, I advised him that we should go through the city and define, for instance, the large parking lot out here. So I don't think the council at this time should set a precedent of going around and paying for the corrections of people that are using public property for their dumpsters, in this case, or other things like that, like the auto shops and whatnot, because if you were to go through and do a real audit of the property lines, you may find some other violations as well. And if we're going to be responsible for them having it on our right of way originally, then maybe at that time we should have asked them for compensation for the past 30 or 40, 50 years of them using the right of way for their dumpster enclosure. Thank you.
Thank you. And yet, Councilwoman Hood, and then
Yep.
Miss Lisa, if you want to come on up.
Sorry to be late to the discussion, but something has been said and I just need clarification on it. We've been talking about the cost to remove the bollards, but I'm hearing the discussion about removing the bollards and the concrete pad. There also is a surround, a fence sort of surrounding it. So I would like us to be clear about what it is we're willing to pay for so
Mhm.
that we can all be on the same page with that.
Okay, thank you. And Miss Williams.
Lisa Williams, Poplar Drive. So I just wanted to see the new design because the last time I saw it was on the other side of the parking lot. So we're moving it over to the North Indian Creek side. And it's going to be behind the swell, so not too close to the MARTA stand, the bus stop. Okay. And I'm sure this has come up because you guys have been talking about it for so long, but the city-owned area behind the dumpster on the other side of the utility box, was there any consideration to move the utility box and make the area larger to fit the dumpster back there? Was it discussed? It was discussed? It wasn't discussed.
It was, but it was not considered.
Okay. All right. It's just, a dumpster in the front where we're trying to revitalize downtown. So,
Exactly.
how often will the dumpster be empty?
Every Monday.
Okay.
Oh, it's
So hot
twice a-
garbage in the front yard. Okay, just checking. I want to make sure that in the city lot can't be used. Okay.
That's what we
No,
do.
that's fine. Thank you. So I guess, you know what, Miss Williams, come back up because you're on planning and zoning, so you heard this too.
Well, and I, yeah,
So I wanted, because you heard it
I
too, so wanna
did
make
not,
sure.
I failed to ask about that city lot in planning and zoning. So I'm speaking as a resident now, but yes, I'm on planning and zoning. And, you know, I mean, it's just, that swell there is nice. The bus stop is nice. And I know that the design efforts have been put in to make this look good, but a dumpster is a dumpster. And so I just don't think it's doing a whole lot for our revitalization efforts. And I don't know, is there other land? Could you wheel your garbage across the street to another city-owned property? You know, I don't know. And I apologize for wasting anyone's time and not asking that question in PNC. So it's just a very unfortunate reality, I guess. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, so we'll have some adjustments in terms of that language for number 4. Okay. So we won't put that on consent. We'll move on to item 6D, which is to discuss a resolution to request the Georgia General Assembly adjust the Clarkston municipal borders to facilitate the delivery of municipal services. And that is Councilman Burke.
So this is something that's been over a year in the making. If y'all recall, back early in 2024, we had a couple of property owners that came to us and requested to be de-annexed from the city because they had shown up in previous elections to vote for whoever would represent them in the city, and they showed up in 2023 and were turned away and told that they actually were no longer in the city limits. And so as we researched it, we found out that what had happened was somewhere along the way, it's still not entirely clear exactly the mechanism of it. Someone looked at their land, realized that part of their property was in unincorporated DeKalb County, part of it was in city limits, but their actual structure, you know, where they resided was located in unincorporated DeKalb, and so they pulled them off of the list of eligible voters to vote in Clarkston municipal elections. They had been paying city taxes. Obviously, this created a lot of frustration for them. They'd already experienced some issues with service provision in terms of 911 dispatch, 911 dispatchers not being sure whether to bring the cabin or call the city, which is why they've requested to be de-annexed. And so last year, I requested that our city staff look into and just research whether or not we had additional parcels in the city that would also have this similar issue. We identified up to 27, whittled that down to a list of 23. And the cause of it is, when Clarkston was founded, it was essentially a railroad station, and I believe the city boundaries were described as a circle, 1/2 mile in any direction, which when your constituents are, goats and cow pastures and farmland, doesn't present any issues. But when you start building things and dividing up land for houses and apartments and everything else, it starts creating issues. And so this item is designed to address that. And I just want to be clear, annexation is a scary word sometimes. Obviously there can be a lot of fights over it. This is not going to change the amount of taxes that anyone is paying to the city or to the county. Nothing is changing. We're just making sure that the boundary line reflects where these 23 individuals are paying their taxes. And so all of these parcels are both within city limits and in the county, which means, I'll give you an example, Foxtrail Apartments. The line goes through the middle of the property, which means one side of the property technically has Clarkston Police responding to it, and the other side of the property, one door to another actually has DeKalb County, which obviously presents issues when you need an ambulance quickly or you need police to respond. And so what this does is it just makes sure that the boundary lines for the city are drawn around the whole property if that property is already paying taxes to the city. And that's all I've got. Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Now, it's been brought to my attention that our new CEO is not doing any annexation in 2026. So are we still going to address this? I mean, 2025. Um, so are we still going to address it, or are we going to perfect it this year and possibly find something to annex of our own in 26, or we're just going to deal with it now?
So my preference would be that we go ahead and pass this to indicate our desire to have it changed. I found out about, I was told that today actually. I think there have been some cases where there was actually money changing hands. You know, there were businesses, there was other, you know, things were being added to the tax digest of a particular city. This doesn't do that. And so my hope is maybe we can at least indicate that we are interested in passing this. Maybe we can have some conversations. If nothing happens, we can go back to the drawing board. We do have a municipal election coming up. This wasn't an issue for, you know, some of these properties in previous elections, and then suddenly it became an issue. I know there are issues with 911, and so my hope is that we can address the legitimate fears and concerns that people may have, and maybe be able to move this forward. But if nothing else, it does indicate our interest in doing this. That answer your question, Vice Mayor?
It does, but it's I think I need a little more clarification because I don't understand why we would act on something almost 365 days in advance.
It's not 365 days
Close
in
enough,
advance.
Mark. It's the whole, wait a minute, I'm not arguing. It's a year. So we already expressed our desire to do it. So that's what I'm saying. Do we want to make sure that all of our I's are dotted, T's are crossed? So when that time presents itself, we're ready?
Um, So the I's and T's are dotted and crossed for these 23 parcels. Yeah, the only difference is that, you know, the CEO has expressed her discomfort with any annexations for 2025. I had spoken with her before I was told that, and just let her know this was coming down the chain. She, you know, very reasonably said, well, I don't have it in front of me at the moment, so just let me know when it comes through. She didn't indicate one way or another where her position was on this. You know, I never respect that. And so my hope is that we don't have to wait 365 days, that maybe we can have a few more conversations and see if, you know, there is a willingness to move forward with this. If not, then yes, we can go back to the drawing board and explore if we want to add new ones. Now, these 23, to your question on adding or expanding, these were specifically selected because nothing was going to change in terms of tax digest. It was the simplest way of making sure that there wasn't any disruption in the provision of emergency services and other city services to taxpayers. And we had intentionally removed any parcels where there would be, you know, potential conflicts, or if any money would change, or there, you know, it might require a little bit more, you know, detailed work or signatures or things like that, specifically to make sure that there weren't any concerns with, you know, the county delegation or any of our county commissioners and the CEO.
I guess I don't see a downside to passing it now, because the worst case scenario is the CEO doesn't want to do it, push off next year, but at least we expressed our interest in the vote of the council showing what we want. And the best case scenario is the CEO wants to present with all these facts, possibly changes their mind, realize that this isn't a tax revenue issue. This is really just about representation and making sure services are efficient delivered. So I don't see a downside, but it's not going to cost us too much money because we should all the work before it's already been done. About that, we're not like that for much more work than that. I think we should just wait.
Yes. The property that is at the cul-de-sac on Cleve Mark, it's not really a cul-de-sac, but where Cleve Mark ends, I believe that was annexed into the city several years ago because the property owner wanted to develop it and they wanted it to be all in the city. So I think it might be good to see a copy of all of the information on all of these parcels. I'm wondering about the two that are on, is that East Avenue? I don't know, ones that's furthest to the south, these right here. I don't know which ones those are on your list. Are those, what street are those on?
Are you talking about the ones adjacent to, it looks like the Southwick development?
It looks like they're
Or-
on
or
East,
south on Market
East
Street.
Avenue. And yeah, I would need to see more information. I would like to see the parcels individually, because I believe there's at least one on here that you may have had old information about, or maybe somehow the county did not get the information that the city annexed all of that, because that was one of the situations, is that the back of their property was in unincorporated. They wanted to have all of their property in, and that was done 5 years ago. So I just have to remember that. So if we could, I would appreciate getting more information to just double check that you have the most current information on this.
Thank you, Councilwoman. If may I respond? Yeah. So all of these parcels were confirmed. We did work with the CAB GIS and the tax assessor's office to confirm. So this is currently what they have in their system. And so the list that we're working off of is currently what the CAB has.
Right. So that doesn't mean that the county has it correctly. I could be wrong, but I believe that property was totally annexed into the city. Does anybody else remember that? All of it enclosed.
That's right. That East Avenue, I remember the
That is
annexation we
correct.
talked about that happened like 2021, but 2022 and 2023 is the cap adjustment, which took, which disenfranchised.
I think it would be important to ask the city manager to search our files about the annexation of that property at the end of Fleet Farm. Because we need to present that to the county. Because if we have already annexed it, we don't need to re-annex it. They need to fix their records. But yeah, I think we should double check that where the problem lies. Because in at least one situation, the problem lies with the county. And that we should present the information to the neighbors that we annexed it and they need to fix their records. And I also think those two properties on East Avenue might be able to also.
What specifically with those two properties is your concern?
I don't know whether we did it or the county did it. I think we just need to double check on it.
To her point, I think what happened was when we initially annexed that East Avenue property, part of it was in DeKalb County. And that when we did the whole thing with the East Avenue project, we had them to review that to ensure that it was in actual Clarkston. So maybe to Councilwoman Hood's point, that might be the same issue with those two parcels that for the record with DeKalb County, they are incorrect.
Sure. Is there anything where this would create an issue to move forward with this? Because my thinking is if it's not correct, then we're going back and we're having to do this again. If it is correct, this isn't going to hurt anything to move forward, as is. And then if it doesn't pass the General Assembly, we aren't able to get DeKalb County to sign off on it. It still gives us the option, instead of having to wait another 365 days to look at and see if there's some administrative fixes that we can do to make sure records are corrected.
I think the point is, I don't care when this is done, but we need to make sure that it is correct. And I believe it is incorrect at this point.
So my question to you is it incorrect to the extent where it would create harm?
Yes.
Because
what we would need to do is have two lists. One where what needs to be done with this research done that says we want to annex in these parts. And another list that says we already annexed this, you need to fix your records. Okay. So I'm not saying throw it out. I'm just saying there's certainly the possibility that there are two lists. We don't need to re-annex property we already annexed. They need to fix their records. Okay. The other part of it is those that you have identified for which there's no question, then yes, list those. But I think it will become confusing if we tried to re-annex property we already annexed.
Stephen?
I was just wanted to say that from a legal perspective, DeKalb County's consent is not required for a General Assembly annexation, nor do they have the opportunity to object legally like they would if it was a non-General Assembly annexation. Now, it may very well be that politically the General Assembly won't take a step that the DeKalb County asked them not to, but just from a legal perspective,
Right.
they don't have that. They don't have a right to veto it.
Right. So it's more of a courtesy, especially since she just stepped into the seat and we don't want to put either one of them in a bad situation by us doing the courtesy. Okay. Any other comments from the council?
I just don't see a downside to passing it if we've already in it. Then just redoing it which one more. But we can definitely double check which ones are right. I think you're right. We did. We want to get at least part of that problem before. So I don't see the harm with double checking that. I also don't see.
Yeah, I guess the other piece is a timing thing. Because when is assembly over? April
4th.
April 4th? Yeah. Okay. Any other comments from council? Public?
Madam Mayor, Dean Moore from Rayford Trail. In 2006, we annexed English Oaks into the city. The city line used to run through that property. On this map that I'm looking at, it shows English Oaks being outside the city. And I think that would, if I were a DeKalb delegate looking at this for approval, I would say, wait a minute, this is a mighty big piece of property. Are you sure we're not collecting taxes from this? So I think you need to research it, make sure that they've got their information right, make sure that you vote on the right information so that there's no confusion in the future. like we have today.
All right, thank you for the, thank you. And
But-
Ms. Williams, we're gonna let the public speak.
Lisa Williams, Poplar Drive. I'm just gonna try to save you some time. The on East Avenue, there are no properties that have not been annexed into Clark. So if it's showing cab, then it's wrong. Because when they did the development on East Avenue, part of that proposal was an annexation for those properties at the end of East Avenue, the large parcels. Because at that time, they were in Stone Mountain. And what's the address on Clevemark? 1145? Yeah, that was an annexation, and you can find the meeting minutes from April 20th, 2021. We annexed that one as well. April 2021. I'm sorry, that was the planning and zoning meeting. I don't know when the city council would put sometime after that.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
If I make one brief remark, just for clarity. So I do want to make it really clear, since again, this is, annexation typically means we're bringing new territory into the city. All of these properties on this list are already on our tax digest. So they're already paying Clarkson taxes. And so, technically, yes, we're using annexation as language, but just to make sure it's absolutely clear, none of these are from a tax standpoint outside the city. There's just been confusion with them, when they call 911, who 911 dispatches because of where some of those boundary lines are drawn. And so some of these are 98% in the city, but there's a little curve. If you zoom in on the parcel map, there's a little curve here or there. It may be 4 square feet, but wherever that is in the system, it's not fully, been updated. So I just want to make sure we're not bringing new people in. We're making sure that people who are already here receive the services that they pay for.
So let me ask you this question, because if it doesn't go through the assembly, can't they annex themselves in to, can't they just go ahead? This is what, 23, right? Okay. But even if you go through the assembly, whatever, unless it's a separate bill, it would still either, unless the governor signs it like the moment it passes, it might not get signed until July, right? It just depends, right?
It could be July 2025 or July 2026, depending on how we look at it.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this again as, it doesn't exclude some of the other approaches to it, but it provides a simple way of fixing a situation that would require a lot more work to kind of do it the other way. And if we end up saying, all right, we don't get it past the General Assembly, decides, hey, we're not willing to do this, respect that, then we can go back to Plan B or Plan C. But this right here provides probably the most straightforward way and the simplest way of fixing it without having to jump through all the different hoops.
Yeah. All right, council, is this gonna be on consent? Oh, consent. We'll have discussions next week. All right, we'll move on to item E, which is to discuss the following and accept 2024 stormwater audit and correction to the 2025 tax year stormwater enterprise fund utility billing. Mr. Kaiser.
Okay. This is going to be an interesting
I
conversation.
know it is. I'll wait for it. We're gonna
So-
time it for 20 minutes too.
10.
The intent tonight is to discuss and to correct inadequate, or I should say, incorrect stormwater billings that have existed for many years with our stormwater fund program, enterprise program. So identifying discrepancies is really the big issue tonight that we're going to talk about. I'm not going to get into other details. I talked about the other details in the steps towards the end. So tonight we're going to talk about those discrepancies and what it means to the stormwater billings that we need to submit to the tax assessor in April. And so I'm going to try to get through this so that, because there's a lot of detail here, there's a lot of numbers and a lot of descriptions of what a stormwater user fee is and what it funds and how you apply it and all that. So I'm going to try to skip most of that, but I'm going to do a high level discussion on how the stormwater program, how it's funded, and how it's billed to all of the parcels in the city. There's 1,467 parcels total with our stormwater billing program. Those parcels that are assessed a stormwater fee. So every single family house is called a equivalent residential unit, ERU. All utilities are set up the same way, or most of them are throughout Georgia. 98% of them are based upon the size of an average house in that community. That average house was established in 2006, whereabouts 2007, way before any of us came here, but it's what's in the ordinance. So one ERU is 1,500 square feet. So just keep that number in mind. Your stormwater fee that you get on a single family house is $63.97 a year on your property tax assessment, property tax bill. Those are not being discussed tonight. The residential houses will not change in terms of billings. We're talking about townhouses, condominiums, commercial and industrial properties. So take a 10,000 square foot commercial site, 10,000 square feet of impervious area, parking lot, rooftop, sidewalks, whatever it may be, 10,000 square feet. Take that number. You take that 10,000 and divide it by 1,500. One ERU. So every property is based on ERU. So that gives you whatever it is, 6.7 ERUs. Take 6.7, multiply it times $63.97, and I did it here and math there. It's $428.60 for 10,000 square foot of impervious area on a commercial site. Here's what we found through our audit. A significant number of commercial properties and industrial properties were underbilled significantly since 2006. We had a conversation about this back in the retreat last year, I think, or earlier this year, whenever the retreat was. And so, and the tables are attached to here. You see all the properties and all of the 2022 ERUs, the 2024 ERUs, and what that variance is. You'll see throughout all those tables that the ERUs in 2022 were a lot less than what they should be. So here is most probably what happened way back when in the city. DeKalb County managed the stormwater program in the city beginning in 2006 all the way up to when Mr. Barker became city manager and was converted over to us, to the city. So there was something that the county helped the city with way back when with their consultant. How you measure impervious area is you use GIS, you use aerial imagery basically. You go down, you measure the area of impervious area, and you do that on every single lot, every single parcel of land. Whoever did that back in 2004, 5, and 6 made a serious mistake in their analysis. So what you have is you have about, count the number, about 44 commercial accounts that are overbilled, which amounts to be about $27,000. You have 250 accounts that were underbilled. So you take those numbers, compare them to the 2022 stormwater fee, and we should be collecting $307,000 more than what we are collecting now. So right now on the commercial properties, we collect about $265,000, whatever the number is. You add another $300 and something thousand of that, so we should be collecting about $500,000 instead of $300,000, basically round off numbers. So condominiums, townhouses, that discrepancy is a lot more minor. What we're going to do is the next step, which we talked about, is basically we're going to have to do a slight adjustment to our stormwater ordinance to correct how we describe a townhouse and a condominium, and so we can do that very easily. But that discrepancy, that discrepancy ordinance only amounts to be about $1,200 total. So that discrepancy is very minor. It doesn't, I mean, it's a discrepancy, but it's not significant like commercial industrial properties. So at the end of the day, what we're talking about here is ensuring that the ERU discrepancies are corrected moving forward, and having those correct ERUs to the tax assessor by the deadline of April 1st or April 15th, whatever the date is in April. And we can make that happen. But right after that are the next steps. So let me talk about the next steps. So the next step is, besides the most important, was correcting the ERU discrepancies and getting them to the tax assessor in time for billings in 2025 when they come out in October. One of the other steps is to hold a public information meeting. Send a letter out, which I've attached, to all of the commercial and industrial properties. And you'll see how I described it, how I explained it, that there are some discrepancies. And here's the correct number. Please meet with us on this date and this time, and we'll talk to you about them. So we'll have our mapping there, we'll have our GIS there, and we can talk to them about how this happened. So that's one step. The other is take care of that stormwater ordinance with regards to townhouses and apartment and townhouses and condos. And that needs to be done sometime in April, because we submit this to the tax assessor. He'll take them whatever time it takes, a couple months to get ready for the tax bill in October. So we want to have those discussions and that ordinance change right in April. So we'll have that to council to make that adjustment in April with the ordinance. The corrected numbers that, particularly when it comes to over billing, so there's a few that were overcharged. So we need to treat them the same, reimburse those that were overcharged for stormwater work. And so that's also part of the conversation. Even though it's a smaller number, it's still 27 parcels. And so those are the steps. The most immediate one is taking care of the ERUs. I need council approval next week to allow us to do that, so that our financial department head can take these numbers, send it to the tax assessor, and get that process moving. The next is to hold a public meeting sometime in April, and then also bring the stormwater ordinance changes to the council in April, also for townhouses and condos. So you'll see 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 pages of those variances of ERUs. You'll see throughout a negative number, and those are the ones that were overbilled, and the ones with no numbers there, no positives, no pluses, those are the ones that were underbilled since 2006. To add to all that, we just completed a very extensive stormwater capital program, budgeting program, basically, to go through all of the priority projects, actually every capital project we're aware of throughout the city, and assign fiscal years to them from a budgeting standpoint. Everything from the assessment, the charge of Public Works Department for stormwater fees, some equipment use and manpower use for stormwater work, all the way to MS4 permitting costs, to all the capital work, all the inspection work, all the design work. Everything goes into a stormwater program, just like a SPLOST transportation project, not any different, but this is stormwater enterprise program for stormwater. So that total cost of the next 6 years, and I'm going to present it next month or the following with the council, so you can see all the projects. They're all laid out, 38 projects. You have all those costs over the next 6 years. It's $4.2 million of stormwater work. That's significant. So just think for a minute, if we did not find these discrepancies in 2022, you would never have enough money to be able to fund all of these improvements. So luckily, we found it when we did, because you'd never be able to come close to funding $4 million of work with only collecting $300,000 a year. Just you wouldn't be able to do it. That's not justification why we did it. It just turned out that way. And so we'll talk about the stormwater capital program here one of these months, so you can see the very specific projects and the cost allocated to each one of those projects. So that's the presentation.
Thank you for pointing it out. And so just for clarification, you need the council to provide you with.
I need council approval to allow us to submit the corrected ERUs to the finance department in the city of Clarkston, so that they can then forward those corrected ERUs and stormwater billings to the DeKalb County tax assessor.
Are there any comments from the council?
Thank you, Larry. I remember when you proposed this audit a couple of years ago, and you were right on point with this, so appreciate it very much.
I wish I would found it 5 years sooner.
So the question, does that need to be in the form of a resolution for next week, or?
That's what I want. But the other piece is we also have to make sure, as soon as Ms. Quinn, I'll give you a second to sit down. We were talking about the item with the stormwater. Does it need to be a resolution in terms of the corrected
ERUs?
I think that needs to be an ordinance. Because that is a part of our stormwater code, and we can't change an ordinance with a resolution.
So
let me ask a question about that. So the ordinance only talks about ERUs. It doesn't talk in detail about how those ERUs are applied to commercial properties. And so really what you have is an error in the calculations from 2006. It's not really an error in the
Oh, I
ordinance.
see what you're saying. So the
Yeah.
text is right,
Correct.
but the way that it's been
Applied.
administered is wrong.
Correct.
Well, that would not need an ordinance change to change. The definition that you mentioned about duplexes would, but if this, I mean, it sounds like what you're describing is an administrative error that goes back to the DeKalb County and has just not been corrected. So we would be well within our rights, and it's what we should do to correct that administration and follow the code as written.
So it doesn't require a resolution.
Not from my perspective for that reason. Now, is there something about the Georgia stormwater manual that would require that? I don't know. Yeah. So you could take it, it sounds like maybe if the council would prefer, you could take it in 2 steps. One would be to notify the tax commissioner, this is how we calculate the ERUs. And then secondly, if you wanted to wait and do it for next year, to change the definition of duplex or any other tweaks to the ordinance text.
So my only thought about that is, and that's the thought, and my only thought about that is we're making adjustments to the ERUs for the condominiums, duplexes, condominiums, and townhouses. So when we send that to the tax assessor, I would think that we want to have that ordinance corrected in case the tax commissioner says, okay, what have you done with the townhouses and condominiums? Right. How did you come to that conclusion? Even though it's only $1,200, right? Or whatever the number is, very small. If you ask that question, we could look them in the eye and say, we've already made that adjustment with our ordinance.
Right. I think otherwise you'd have to pull those off the list.
Yeah. You could do that too.
So for next week, we don't need a resolution for next week.
If this city wants to limit the change to the calculation and not change the definition, then that would be one way to proceed that would not require a vote of the council.
Because I think that the definition of townhomes, that's something that's being addressed. That's not correct.
Yeah, that'll be the ordinance we present.
Right.
Also. That would be the following month.
Right.
It won't be this coming Tuesday.
Okay. Okay. And then the other piece is about directing and doing the public meeting and everything else. Because I just want to make sure when we make the motion next week, are we making about 2 or 3 things that we're talking about now that we would have to make in that motion versus it being.
There's only one motion, that is correct the ERU discrepancies.
It just be for calculation next week.
Okay.
Right. Everything else will come later.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, it sounds like if I'm incorrect, correct me, but it sounds like Mr. Kaiser basically wants the council's consent because this is going to cost people money.
Right.
And so, you know,
Okay. So we can just make that motion for the ERU, then we should be fine for that. And then you'll follow up in terms of staff to send out the letter and have the meeting with those who've been involved in that situation. which will cover that part. Okay. Is that good for everybody?
We just get it clear, whatever you need, I'd like to get to have in writing since it's more of a report in the agenda packet. So we can have specifically what you need us to sign off on in that motion. Does that make sense? So
Okay,
whatever
let me
language.
do
I think is
that
helpful
working
to have.
with the city manager. Let me put the right words together so you have exactly on paper exactly what needs to be said.
Because whatever that is has to go to the tax.
Yes, correct, yeah, right.
So we just want to make sure for reference, historical, you heard a lot of historical references, so we need to make sure that documentation is available for whenever you have to potentially go back, just like you had to go for 2000.
so in that case, the best way to document really is with a resolution.
Okay. All right, so you'll take care of that, Mr. Quinn.
I will take care of that in cooperation with Mr. Kaiser and Ms. Sadler Jones.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll have that. With that, we can just add that to the agenda for next week, not as consent, since we need that additional document. Okay. And then citizens, do we have any comments from the citizens? Citizens. No comments from the citizens. All right. That's for next week. Then we'll move to Mr. Quinn for item 6F, which is to discuss a resolution to deny the claim for damages asserted by complainant Robert Kuma.
Yes, Madam Mayor. So this is, as we've discussed before, we, under the Georgia state law, the statute of limitations for a claim against a city does not begin to run until the governing body rejects that claim. And that'll be done by a resolution. So that's what we have received an ante litem notice, and that's what this item is to do. To very briefly address the substance here, which is this Mr. Kuma was present in the road, apparently doing sit-ups and push-ups in the roadway at night wearing black clothing. And a Clarkston police officer encountered him there and saw him in time to stop and got out of the car and advised him, for your own safety, you should not be doing push-ups in the road at night in dark clothing or you're liable to be hit by a car, which Mr. Kuma apparently did not take that advice and then was later hit by a Clarkston patrol vehicle. And he has submitted a claim against the city for that. The investigation by the police department determined what I just told you, which indicates to me that the negligence of Mr. Kuma is overwhelmingly the cause of his own injury. And that is what the resolution states, which we've been requested by the insurer to approve and then start that clock ticking.
All right, any comments from the council? Okay.
Good perception that's the street at night, dark mode. That's my comment.
No, we built a whole calisthenics in Island Park, so just have them go over there. Any comments from the public?
Madam Mayor, Dean Moore, Rayford Trail. Was this the same cop that ran over him that warned him about being in the road, or was it a different police officer?
It was two separate,
Two separate police officers, two separate incidents.
right.
two
They were
separate
in the
dates?
neighborhood for some other business, and the one officer saw him, avoided him, and warned him, and then the second one did not see him and was not able to avoid him.
Same day?
Oh yes, it was
Oh, so-
within an hour or so.
Oh, wow. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. With that, can this be on consent? Consent? Okay, all right. With that, no other comments from the public. We'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion. That we adjourn.
You move to
Second.
adjourn? Okay. So
Second.
Councilman Perkins, Vice Mayor Johnson, it's been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn the meeting. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passed. Meeting, thank you. Meeting adjourned.